and this is super fun. It occurred to me today, for those of you listening this week, as of now, there are 5 registrants. We may have a couple late participants, so we might get up to as many as 7 or 8. I just want to, on behalf of Dianna and the rest of the team, say we're really excited you're here, even though you're not here right now, because you don't have to be here right now. Though I will tell you, the value of human interaction and dynamic is a great way to reinforce learning. So as often as you can be here, Mondays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can work off of that for everything else. And here in Hawaii, we don't change time, so that's going to screw me up in another few weeks, but we'll figure that out too. But the premise of day 1 in each week during this 12-week journey together is to center your thinking around a particular tool or experiment and or both that will support you discovering new ways and more effective and effortless ways to be the best you. And I just want to say it like that, because I mean, there's a million things we could apply what I just said to. And whether you're in the work environment or you're taking this stuff home or both, this works anywhere and everywhere. And that's why at Play Lab, we're just so hip on play. So today, before we talk about week 1, which is that play actually lifts the spirit. And I'll give you a few statistics later. When I found them over the weekend, I was like, oh my gosh, if it's hard being an employee, when I saw these leadership statistics, I thought, for those of you who are employers or leaders or managers, hey, it's tough. And I'll tell you more about that later. But I want to establish something. It's really important to establish. Thank you for attending. It takes a little courage to say, give us 24 hours over the next 90 days. Let us teach you how to play with intelligence around it and watch that change your life. I mean, that's the first time I said something like that 10 years ago, I got laughed out of a boardroom. So congratulations on being open. And I want to let that openness spark a lot of curiosity. And throughout this entire program, Dianna, Matt, myself, Stefani, Adam, you'll get all sorts of little sprinkles of exercises that will help you spark that curiosity. And I'm going to put a warning on the label. Once it's open, it might just take you all on a magic carpet ride or down the Cheshire Cat's rabbit hole. I wonder why they call them rabbit holes. I've never thought this before. It's a Cheshire cat. Maybe you just call them cat holes. But anyway, here's the point. Be open. I don't want you to throw away everything you've learned or thought about. I just want you to put it over here for the next 90 days. And the reason for that is because that will give you openness to discover new things and then do a little comparison. Is what I've discovered more useful than what I've had? And you get to choose. So the thing that oftentimes people ask me is make the case for play. And the best place I can start is with Confucius. And by the way, I think there's a lot of things that are great quotes that get handed down that probably Confucius gets credit for, that whether he did it or not, no one knows. But this statement you've probably heard. Find a job you love and you'll never have to work again. Here's a talking point. Like, as you're listening to this later today, I want you to ask a few people if they found that job yet. And I want to just give you my own personal experience around this. I've started 6 other companies. I've worked for a few people. And I liked most of my jobs, some of them not, but I liked them. But I didn't love it. It was work. When the idea hit me 10 years ago to go on this journey with play, I can promise you, I have not worked a day since. And now people say, if we're going to play the devil's advocate on this, well, wait a minute. It still takes effort. Yes, it does take effort, but play takes effort too. So the premise is, am I giving that effort freely? and contagiously, and with a social awareness of joy and sharing. And that's what play is. And within the program, you'll see we kind of talk about 5 key identifiers that make play play. And for sure, it's different for everybody. But when I'm in a state of play, I'm really my best self. And I won't get into the 5 points. You'll see them throughout the program. And now maybe you have something to be curious about. But I'm curious with you, Dianna. Have you heard people say that statement? Have you met people who really feel like, because I know when you found your red ball, that was like, you haven't worked since. Yeah, there's effort, but when the effort comes with joy and comes with a like this infectious, you can't put it down, that makes a huge difference. I know you've experienced this. Have you experienced others? Talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, I felt like when I decided to approach work in a whole different way, I definitely said I never want to work a day in my life. And I said, I just want to play. And when I play, it feels more lighter. It feels lighter.
Mhm.
It feels like you want to keep doing it forever. And
Yeah. Mhm.
so like when I was at work, I was like, when is the time done? Like I'd always
Looking
be
at the
looking at
watch,
the
right?
time, like 5 more minutes left. And I'm like, oh, like I'd be like, when can I get out of it
Mm.
versus how much can I do of it? And that was this huge shift in my life. So after I, quit my 9 to 5 career, I just said, if I play really good, this would go on for the rest of my life and I would have fun doing it. And it'll be way easier than looking at the time. It would just be like, wow, how much time do I get to do it? So it was a huge shift in my life. So yeah, never worked in for someone or anyone else except for play
Yeah.
since.
Yeah, a play is a good boss, right? um, so let me help you understand, like, play and work can, and this is the whole point of your journey with us, can have a magnificent dynamic. And I'll just use the last weekend as an example. We've been working to get this program going. We've been working to put people just like you in it. We've been working on a capital raise, or I mean, there's a whole bunch of things going on. And I had a friend say, "Are you working this weekend?" And I said, "I sure am." And he said, "That's a bummer." And I said, "Not in my world, like, because I love what I do." And I I think sometimes we equate that quote with people who are rich and who, oh, I gotta watch my hands with that background, who they've hit it big time. No, there's plenty of people. Um, this guy, he just won America's Greatest Talent um, competition. He's been a janitor for 37 years, and he's loved it. And so it's really not some mythological idea that can never be attained, I guess is the point I want to make to you. And when I'm in a state of play, I have no resistance. And I want you to think about that. Work becomes work when I say, oh, I don't like my boss. Oh, I don't like this part of my job. Oh, I don't like my parking spot. I don't like resistance is the inability to accept what is as useful. And then we struggle with it. And that's why there's such a low engagement rate in the workplace is people are in resistance. So along the way, this 90 days, we're going to invite you to explore that dynamic, pay attention to it for sure every week, because if you can carry a state of playfulness, I didn't necessarily mean exercise some playful activity, but just be mindful of what you discover. It go a long way to, as Dianna said, fueling your work. So with that idea in mind, that's kind of the end goal, right? Now let's talk just a little bit about what you're going to experience this week. We're going to ask you to rethink everything, right? And in the process of rethinking, you know, that's why you need the courage and the curiosity, because what you know seems safe. But the truth is the stuff we know is dynamically painful in the workplace. Let me read you some statistics and then I'll match facts with them. First statistic, 41%. Second statistic, 36%. 70%, and the fourth one, 69%. Now, listen to what they're attached to. It was shocking. 41% of senior leaders say their current stress in the workplace is no longer manageable. Think about that, guys. You in this program, to some degree or another, may have in the past, may have in the future, perhaps currently, have roles in management and leadership. And I'm not shifting blame, but it's no wonder the state of the workplace is in such disarray. If the managers are that way, it all trickles down, right? Like that stuff's going to affect the people. 36% ticked the box exhausted in the survey. 70% ticked the box burnout. And 69% of the managers and leaders in corporate America surveyed today, 69% said they're thinking of quitting. So when I tell you that week one is all about lifting your spirit, maybe this is not your current experience. And we were going to talk about that here today. And both Dianna and I have created work environments for ourselves that our spirit's up most of the time. But if you're saying, yeah, it's all good, I want you to go deeper, because the truth is most workplaces are littered with those kind of statistics. And therefore, that's the energy people go into and go home from. It's all but impossible to think an individual at times at work may have his spirit down, may have her sense of enthusiasm squashed. And sometimes, even if work's going good, life happens and that comes with them to work. And in leadership, being able to help people shift energy, that's what play is all about, shifting energy. And you'll hear us say that or some form of that, I would imagine, in every week. Because think of it this way, if you're a leader in your company, you very likely have budgets designed to fix things, to improve, to expand and change. And whenever there's a problem, what are you doing? You're shifting energy. It could be with a piece of technology, it could be with a person, or anything and everything in between. We pay a lot of money to shift energy. Did you want to say something, Dianna?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the fact that we're in this, it's a crisis where we wait, we work our butt off to one day play. You know, we have our 1 week vacation. And there's this time when I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what you said, 71%, 69% are already quitting. It just
Thinking
means
about quitting.
are thinking about quitting, and we're already at that point where nobody's even going to join the workforce anymore. So that is the absolute end of a pendulum shift. So this is the direction. And you know, I feel like what we're about to do now is we definitely need to experiment with different ways of play that work for us. If it's not that, then what? You know, that's that need of shift. And it's almost giving me goosebumps, because it's like, while people are leaving and they just like, oh, I've only worked for the rest of my life looking to hopefully play. There's two things. One, they're already burned out of working. They want to do that. And two, they've never even maybe had a chance to play before. Yeah. So the fact that we actually have to practice how to play again, it's like this huge mindset shift. So
I'm glad you said that. I had a friend make me listen to an excerpt of a book he's reading. You know him, John Liano. We were going to a meeting together, and the book's called Sand Talk. And he said, Steve, this is going to make you like just disgusted. He said, in schools today, we school the play out of youth. And like, oh, it's so true. So if you're having any challenges accessing your states of play throughout this entire 12 weeks, we got you. Like, we're going to help you. There are many ways to do it. And that's why it's just important to stay in touch with us. We'll be checking in with you a lot. Let me wrap up today by having you think about something that you saw in the day one material. It's not the only learning system in the world, but it's commonly accepted as one of the standardized ways of approaching education is accepting that people learn one of three ways: visually, audibly, or kinesthetically with touch. And so if you think about that, it's also true with play, because these are mechanisms by which we receive information and then interpret it. And we've been doing it since we were little kids. So what I want to really lay out before you today is that through the course of this week and the experiments you do, you're going to think about play visually, audibly, and kinesthetically. If you'd been here with us today, we would have had a little show and tell from all of you, but I'm just going to give you a little bit here. This book, oh, can you see it? Yeah, maybe I should
Put
get
it
rid
in
of
front of
it.
you.
I
Right
should
there.
get rid of the background. This is one of my favorite books ever, All the Places You Go by Dr. Seuss. I don't have to read it ever anymore. It sits on my mantle over there, and just seeing it brings up a 90-day program I did with a personal development company and reminds me of all the tools I got out of that. It is a playful, sorry, I got to get that right. No more backgrounds. It is a playful but visual response. It's as we say in the program, a talisman. You could call it a cue, right? It can interrupt. It can also prompt. The design of play is to help you be with yourself in your most difficult and challenging moments. Because through life, we tend to, oh, there's another hard thing. Can I just kind of put that away or not deal with it? And it shows up in lots of ways. So what we're going to do with you on Friday is look back at the experiments you did, and you'll get some instruction in that as you go through the material the next few days. And think of it like this: there are no rules to this 90-day experiment. Now, as your trained guides, we're going to encourage certain things to help support you finding answers that work for you quicker, but take the rule book and throw it away. Like, if you want to experiment with rocks because it's kinesthetic, you can touch it, do it. If audibly you want to experiment with the sound of crackling bacon, do it. Here's my audible. You probably can't hear that, but every time I get stuck, I click a pen until it turns on, whatever the it is. Now, some people, if they were my office mate, they'd say, Steve, would you stop that? I have a love for this slinky. and I don't know how to explain it. When I first saw, I had a slinky as a kid and I hated it. But when I first saw this during the pandemic, I said, I got to have that. And ever since, when I look at it, it brightens my day by virtue of the color spectrum. And the other thing it does is it reminds me to be pliable, flexible, open, and amenable. In a world where we're so divided, so I'm right, you're wrong, something like that really helps me listen better, helps me brainstorm more. So we didn't have a chance to do that with you here today, but you've been asked in the program to think about like the top 3 challenges that affect you, particularly around work, but they kind of dampen your spirit, because whatever those 3 challenges are, we want you to go discover this week ways to play visually, audibly, and kinesthetically. Any other thoughts for them today, Dianna?
Yes, definitely. Would love to have you keep this in mind as you are approaching play personally. So you don't need to tell anybody that you're playing. It's a mindset, right? So we're definitely saying what we want to do is shift the mind from I have to go to work today and just go, I'm going to go play today. And since everything is an experiment, we never know what we're going to discover. And one
Right.
of the things that we definitely want you to discover is that definitely, what are you thinking when you are playing, or what do you feel when you play, right?
Yeah.
So what is that main shift that goes out of like, now I'm working and now I'm playing? And then what we want you to discover is, does play work? Question mark. And then if you feel a shift, you're like, play does work. So we
Yeah.
keep following that. So
Yeah.
the
Note that.
encouragement is that, of course, we know what work looks like, but we're getting you to discover a whole new place to go. So go and play in new places. Maybe you've never walked in with, a little figurine or a slinky before, and just notice one, how it makes you feel, and then see if there's a shift in what the environment looks like and feels like. Okay. And one of the biggest things, I mean, we don't really say this, especially when it's personal, is that the fastest way to learn is actually social, right? So we're mirroring machines, we're always following other people. And when we feel good, just observe if play lifts your spirit and if it lifts the spirit of other people around you. So we are social beings. And if you have to go to work and be social, why not lift your spirit and see if that play is actually playing for you for the benefit of feeling good and, lifting your spirit. So a lot of things to, just investigate. Even the tiniest things can really shift and see if that works for you. And that's what this first week is all about, just noticing what those tiny things can make a big difference.
So by Friday, we hope that you'll have discovered at least one, if not a few, visual, audible, and kinesthetic ways for you to play. And then, more importantly, experiment with which of them, or all of them, or none of them that help support being guardians against the ways that you tend to find your spirit robbed from you. And we all face these things. I want to bring the star of the show to center stage. All right, stay right there. You see him. This guy, by the way, I love Pixar movies. So I think Pixar made this movie, but those kinds of movies. And when I saw the Minions, it was love at first sight, like totally silly, goofy Steve related to these totally goofy characters. I told Dianna and the rest of our team, like, if they were real pets, I'd buy them all. But here's my point. I don't care what dimension I'm in where my spirit's robbed from me. Just looking at that little guy triggers a whole host of deeply playful and useful energy. And it can shift just like that, just by looking. So this is why Dianna says we want you to pay attention to not what you're thinking, but what you're feeling, because it is the pathway of emotion that shifts energy up or down. And we want to become masters of lifting up our spirits. Have a great week. We will
Yes.
see you all in the sandbox on Friday at the same time. And while Mondays, you can make it great, do your dead level best to always be in the sandbox, because just like Dianna said, this experiment, in the end, play is designed to connect human beings. And it brings a higher level of social awareness. And we'll talk about all that way down later in the program. But
Yep.
as a result of that, there's a whole lot of side benefits by being together. So we want you all to be with us on Friday. Have a wonderful week. And thank you for joining us on this inaugural journey. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.